painting to photography, from beadwork to woodworking. KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University presents Art Beat. Art Beat highlights the work and accomplishments of local artists from in and around Winona. Support for Art Beat is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Today on Art Beat, we're going to talk about art that is centered around Midwest Music Fest. Specifically, a photography exhibit being shown at Ed's No Name Bar. The exhibit features two local Winona photographers, Nathaniel Nelson and Jon Swanson. Today, we talk to Jon, but don't worry, we'll hear from Nathaniel next week. Jon talks about how the festival is a great way to combine his love for music and photography. We also get to hear a little about his process and even a few tips for beginners. I'm Bill Stoneberg with Jon Swanson on Art Beat. How are you doing today, Jon?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, thanks for being on the show. I'm looking around. There's a lot of great photos and stuff, of music and musicians, the crowd, stuff like that. What is it about music and musicians that inspire you to shoot?
Well, I'm combining two loves at the same time. I'm out a lot socially for live music. I really support it. I love original music, independent music. And as long as I'm out, I've been just bringing a camera with me and taking some shots. And then the festival a few years ago saw some of the things I was posting online, and they're like, well, would you be interested in shooting the festival? And I said, I'll do it on a volunteer basis, yes.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for? A couple years, you said?
This will be my fourth year for the fest. I've been shooting, photography my whole life, and I've been shooting live music most of my life. Okay,
cool. So, during a festival, I'm assuming you shoot a lot of photos, for all these bands. There's so many bands and musicians. How do you sift through it all? Like, what's your process? How does that work? How do you decide what to keep, what to show, what to not show?
Well, I actually don't shoot a lot. I come from a film background, so I'm pretty conservative even when I shoot digitally. I still shoot film. So I try to make every shot count. I think in terms of film, even with battery life or how many images I can fit onto a memory card. So I think less is more. I kind of wait for the right moment and wait for the right lighting and wait for the right opportunity to take a photo. But as far as selecting what's going to go, I want to use a variety of artists that kind of represent the festival, past, present, and future. And I kind of put on my curatorial hat. This is what I do for a living, so it's very easy for me to run through several hundred images and pick out the best. And what I think would be, would best represent the festival and best represent the type of photography I do.
Okay, great. And it might be a good time to mention you're also a curator at the Minnesota Marine Art Museum, correct?
Yes, that's what I do professionally. Photography is my passion, but it's a hobby. And again, I just do it for the festival. I donate my time. These exhibitions that I do are, a donation in kind. I pay for all the printing, the paper, the ink, my time, set up, tear down, all of that. I just do it to help the festival, help support the No Name Bar, help support Winona, help support my fellow musicians. So,
yeah, and a love of the art form, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Are you ever, you said you try to make every shot count. Are you ever, surprised when you get something back or when you develop it or when you, pull it up on the computer? Are you ever pleasantly surprised or maybe disappointed or, does it ever surprise you?
Always, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get that perfect shot, and, it is very difficult to shoot, say, a group of people on a stage and all have their eyes looking in the right direction, or their face isn't covered by a microphone or a cymbal or whatnot. So it can be very difficult. But when I get that shot, I think is really good. Oh, I'm very happy.
Okay. And speaking of the environment and stuff, there's a lot of fast-changing lighting and different colored lighting. They move around a lot. How do you deal with those types of challenges?
Well, digitally, I shoot black and white probably 98% of the time. It's just from my film background, from a darkroom background, from a fine arts background. It's my preference. I'm not doing it as a pronouncement, but... So I'm conscious of the highlights. I tend to shoot a little bit underexposed, so when I do some post in Photoshop, I can pull those up rather than have them blown out, big white areas, highlights blown out. If the act merits it, I can point out a couple examples here. Probably the most obvious one would be Ignite, the dance troupe that performs every year at Midwest Music Fest, and they use multiple colored LED lights as part of their instead of spinning fire, they're spinning lighting. It would be a very lackluster photograph if it was in black and white, so I use a couple different film simulations, and so really kind of boost the saturation and some of the colors in a shooting color for them. Always a challenge, though, because you don't have control over the lighting. You have to just take what's given to you, and oftentimes, I'll have to wait for that right moment and try to get the photo.
It sounds like quite a challenge to deal with that, and especially the lighting. Is that also kind of part of the reward for it, too, when you see it back?
Oh, absolutely. I've had some happy accidents. I've also had some just, shots that could have been great, but they were terrible. The lighting switched right when I took the photograph. Or for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. But, generally, when I go out and shoot a band, I can always get, half a dozen that are really quite solid.
Okay. And I kind of wanted to hit on, you mentioned shooting in black and white. You have a lot of beautiful black and white shots here of bands. When you do shoot for black and white, when you're shooting digitally, do you actually shoot in black and white mode, or do you drop the color out afterwards? How does that work for you, and why?
Well, when I shoot in black and white, I use two different cameras. One is a mirrorless Fujifilm camera, which is capable of both color and black and white. And you can shoot in black and white on that, but if you shoot, the main files will come out in color, so I can work on those in Photoshop. My second camera, I have a Leica monochrome, and that is strictly a black and white filter. It is incapable of shooting color. It only shoots black and white, so I have a much better range of tonality between the lightest part of the photograph to the darkest part. That one can be a little bit tricky shooting live, but when I nail it, they're magic. They're just exceptional.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So what would be the biggest challenge, do you think, photographing musicians?
Again, trying to get the shot where you can have the lighting that's correct, have their facial expression correct. If their eyes are looking up or out, that's always helpful. And if you're shooting, a group, it's very difficult to get everyone's face in focus together. So oftentimes, too, I'll take long exposures so the band looks really blurry to capture, a really heavy dynamic movement. Or I'll focus on one figure, focus on one pair of eyes, and the rest is out of focus, and that's deliberate.
Okay. When you're shooting a band, do you ever have shots planned out or something in mind that you want to capture, or do you just kind of play it by ear and just go with the flow?
Never. I never plan in advance. I just show up, and again, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this as a hobby, and I'm doing it to hone a skill. The more I've done this, the better I've become, but I still have a long ways to go. But I never think I'm going to stand here and do this. I just read the room, read the band, read the crowd, and go from there. Okay.
Do you ever get feedback from the musicians that you photograph? What have they said about it?
Oh, generally it's very, very positive, and I'm very generous with these photos. I don't put watermarks on them. I don't charge money for them. Any band that I shoot that I see live, I will share them with them via Facebook or email, and they're free to use that however they like. I'm not in this for a profession. I'm doing this out of a passion and doing this out of a community thing as well. So I don't mind sharing it.
Cool. So it really is a love of the art form and the community itself. That's great. What is it that you personally think makes a great photograph?
Oh,
I know that might be kind of a tough question.
That's a challenge. I mean, I've been studying the history of photography for decades. I think the easy answer would be you know it when you see it. There's a surprise element, but yet there's a hook to it where you're not quite sure what's going on. And if it sticks in your brain for a day and you have to keep thinking about it, like how did he or why, what was that? If you can't just instantly process it, instantly, digest it, if it sticks with you for a little bit, then that's a good photograph.
Okay, cool. Do you have a current favorite photographer? I say current maybe to narrow it down.
Boy, that's a tough question. Again, because I'm a student of the history of photography, and there's a lot of great photographers that I love, from very formal portrait, very formal landscape, to just absolute, street photographers and live music photographers.
So if someone wanted to go out and shoot live music by themselves, what would be your advice to them?
Well, have fun, first of all. It shouldn't feel like a job or a duty. And be there as a fan, be there to enjoy the music, and then just complement that with photographs. And then 2 would be, also don't neglect the crowd, don't neglect the room. Take photos of people having fun, dancing, participating, enjoying the show. Because people generally are the most interesting subject. I would just, avoid like what everyone's doing with their cell phone. Do the exact opposite of that.
So don't just hold it up above your head and shoot the band.
No, don't do that. Because the Facebook is filled with tons of photos like this. But try to find a different angle. Seek out something that's a little bit different, and try to capture the evening, tell a story, capture the vibe of the room, the crowd, the band. Again, but just have fun with it.
That's great advice. Have fun, and tell a story, like you said. That's fantastic. So you do a lot more than just, musicians. You've got several exhibits going on. You mentioned you have the Winona characters. Where can people find your work and find out about your shows and stuff like that?
Either on Facebook or my website. You can look up JonSwansonPhotography.com. That's JON. Or on Facebook, you can look up Winona Characters, and that is the portrait series that I shot 2 years ago. I ended up shooting 152 people in Winona doing formal black and white portraits, which became an exhibition, and then a series of exhibitions, and also a book. And that I may pick up in the future. It's grant dependent, and I'm eligible for the grant from Southeast Minnesota Arts Council next calendar year, so I'm going to reapply and probably continue with that project as well.
Okay, great. I'm down here at Ed's No Name Bar. We're talking to Jon Swanson. He's one of the photographers in the exhibit for the Midwest Music Fest photos down here. And if you want to find more out about Jon, go to his website or Facebook. And thanks so much for being with us today, Jon.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to Jon Swanson for joining us today on Artbeat. For more information on Jon and his photography, go to JonSwansonPhotography.com. I encourage anyone interested in live music and photography to visit the exhibit at Ed's No Name Bar, which will be showing until June 2nd, 2019. Join us next week when we talk to the other photographer featured in the exhibit, Nathaniel Nelson. To stream today's show or any other episode of Artbeat, go to KQAL.org and look for program archives under the Media tab. I'm Bill Stoneberg, and we've been visiting with photographer Jon Swanson on Artbeat.
Artbeat is written and produced by KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us on the web at KQAL.org.
Is art an important part of your life? Tune into Artbeat Tuesdays at 12:30 right here on 89.5 KQAL. Artbeat is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.